Wow. Okay.
Lawlers, welcome back to another Beginner's Basics class. Today we're going to be covering off attack moving / kiting. Some people even know this as orb walking. All in all, it is a technique that helps maximize your output and efficiency when playing ranged champions that are mostly auto attack based. So here I have Twisted Fate queued in as my champion, and you can see Twisted Fate, even though he does have spells and abilities that he can use, he still does have auto attacks that are important to land in fights. So what kiting and attack moving do is it maximizes your effectiveness with right-click based champions. And I say right-click because that's basically champions who deal more of their damage with auto attacks than other abilities. So if I was playing AD Twisted Fate here, this would be very much important for me to know how to attack move. It's less important on champions who are more spell based, so think things like Renekton or things like Zed, where you want to try and use quick casting to land more of your abilities, or using combos in the right order and sequencing out your damage in very efficient ways. With other champions that rely on hitting auto attacks to deal most of their damage, you want to make sure you're using attack move and kiting properly, because it's going to let you stay alive and deal out more damage over the course of a fight. Now, what you'll notice here, and we want to talk about maybe the danger of not attack moving or kiting first, is the fact that if I rely on right clicking to not only move my character around the map, but also hover my cursor over my target and then right click to attack it, that is the very basic rudimentary kind of initial way people learn to attack targets in League of Legends. And again, for the most part, that's fine unless you're playing a ranged character that deals damage with auto attacks as part of their output. Then you run the risk, unless you're an absolute god mode with your clicks, of having to misclick and actually move closer to within range of whoever you're attacking to land your spells, or sorry, to land your auto attacks. So you can see with this red ring that we have with the rapid fire cannon right now, this is my max auto attack range. So if I were to try and click on this champion, but I misclicked off to the side with my right click, and I was like, oh, I missed, and now I try and auto attack, now I'm in a lot closer range. If this was a Renekton, he'd be dashing onto me now, or damaging me, stunning me, whatever, right? I want to stay at a further and a safer distance to output my damage. So that's where attack move comes in handy. So what you want to do to make sure you initialize your attack move is you're going to press escape. You're going to open up your options, okay? Then in the game section, you want to click on attack move on cursor. Okay, very important to click this function. We'll talk about this in a little bit more, but I just want to show you my basic setup to, if I was teaching a beginner, how is the best way to get into kiting and attack moving. So click this on. Then what you're going to do is go to your hotkeys, and you're going to go down to player movement hotkeys. So click that to drop down the additional items. And I would recommend on the player attack move, you set it to the T button on your keyboard. Okay, now if you want to set this to something else because your hand is more comfortable clicking another button, that's fine. Some people click this with R and actually move their ultimate ability over to T. Doesn't matter, it's up to you. My personal preference and how I learn and what I'm comfortable with is using T. Okay, so now what that's going to do is, instead of me having to right click, and you can see the green arrows come up when I right click, that means I'm going to move. If I happen to have my cursor over a target and it becomes a sword icon and I right click, that means I'll attack. That's, again, the traditional way that most people play it. What the T button now does is, wherever my cursor is, if I press T, you'll see these red arrows go on the ground, not the green arrows that normally come out with right clicks. Now they're red, okay? What this does is it tells your character to move to this area, but stop as soon as there's something that you can attack within range. So that's really, really good because it protects you from over clicking and getting too close to a champion. If I instead put my cursor over my intended target, even if I miss but I'm pressing T, you can see Twisted Fate stopped right there to start attacking him at max range, okay? So that means the safest and most effective way to play ranged auto attack based characters is with attack moves, where you keep your cursor, if you can, ideally still directly over the target that you want to attack with your autos, but if you happen to miss, it still is going to stop at max range and attack them. This is also super beneficial if there's a cluster of enemies, okay? Let's say I was trying to attack this little guy all the way in the back. If I'm relying on my right clicks, I have to be really, really good with right clicks to make sure I hit this guy every time, okay? But by using attack move, I can set my cursor all the way behind where I know it's going to be closer to that target and give myself a little bit more margin for error. Okay, same thing if I wanted to hit this guy in the left, I would attack move just somewhere on the left side of this target. Right side of this target. Left, back here. Okay? So you can see it gives you a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more wiggle room, margin for error, but still stay at the max range and hit your targets. So it's not going to revolutionize your gameplay. It's not going to take you from someone who, you know, dies 10 times a game as an ADC or Twisted Fate, and then all of a sudden, like, not make you die once, but it will reduce even to a small percentage. Let's say 10% if you happen to misclick 10% of the time, that you misclick too far, and then, oops, now I'm in range of all 4 of these guys to hit me with something. Okay, the other benefit that we'll talk about quickly with attack moving is if you're chasing someone into a bush, right? Normally you'd have to right click, you're spamming it, and then you see him and then you try to right click him. There's that extra, you know, millisecond of your brain trying to go into the fog of war, identify where the target is, and then quickly click over and hit that guy. It's possible, again, if you're really dialed in with your mouth clicks that day, it's going to work, but it's much easier just to press the attack move button on this bush. I'm taking my hands off the keyboard, and he walked in there and attacked as soon as he saw that champion available to him, okay? So this is an example in this bush. There's also one we could put in this bush. If I think there could be someone in here, I'm not sure, but I'm going to walk in. If I right click to here, my character is going to walk there before it does anything else. But if I just click attack move in this bush, watch. As soon as he is in range and he can see the target because we're out of the fog, he starts attacking. He does not finish walking all the way to the end of this bush, right? So really important when you're going into fog of war or you're going into bushes to attack move instead of right clicking into them. All right. Again, this might only save you 1 death out of every 10 times, but that's 10%. And if we're talking about trying to edge out and climb and go from a 45% win rate to a 55% win rate, for example, 10% is a lot. So I'm not saying it's going to be that direct comparison, but if you can maximize and you can build this into your clicking patterns, it's going to be much more beneficial to you. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about before we end this class is the importance of having this as attack move on cursor. So when it's enabled, attack move will prioritize a target closest to your mouse. So if we set up a few more dummies here, you can see that right now with it enabled, it prioritizes the target closest to the attack move that I click on the map. So if I hover my cursor here, it's going to prioritize this target. If I hover my cursor somewhere near this target, it's going to prioritize that target. And same thing somewhere over here. Prioritize whatever's closest to my attack move click. If you disable this, and again, I would not recommend you do this. If you disable this, it will always prioritize on attack move whoever is closest to you. So even if I want to hit this back champion and I'm clicking my attack move here, Twisted Fate will stop and attack the closest thing to you. So I don't know of too many things that this would work at. Like, you don't want to hit minions instead of champions, and there's other settings you can do to attack move on champions only, but we're not going to get into this during the basics class here. But it's just less optimal for when you're playing League as a beginner, trying to get into attack moving and kiting. You want to try and make sure at least your attack move button is attacking who you click closest to. So to do that, just make sure you have attack move on cursor enabled and click OK. All right, so let's round this up by quickly just covering off kiting. So kiting would be using attack moving in the most optimal way while you're actively engaged in a skirmish or a fight with other champions and you're forced to try and move and stay at max distance, okay? So I'm gonna give you the reason why I call it a kite, because if a kite was flying away from Twisted Fate right now and it's at the end of this area here, you wanna make sure that that kite string stays really, really taut. So that's how I think of it, like an actual kite metaphor, where I wanna fly this kite at max range away from me. If this guy comes in, if you were to move in closer, I have to move back to keep this kite at max range. If he moves away, I have to follow him and keep that kite at max range. Anytime you're within that max range, you're not doing a good enough job kiting. So where attack move comes in handy here is, again, if I was relying on right clicks to attack move and also kite at the same time, if this character started to move into me, to keep at max range, I'd not only have to click behind me, but then I would have to go back with my cursor and right click him to start attacking him. So if this moves in, out, that's a lot of mouse clicks at a long range that I have to keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So you can see right now I'm doing a good job. My auto attack speed's not fast enough that I'm stopping my autos, but here we'll let them go through. It's a lot of mouse work, okay? And this is with a stationary target with no other minions around, no other champions around. It's going to be way too hard to do this in an active setting. What's much easier to do is to actually, knowing that the right click, or sorry, the attack move click that we have right now targets the champion or target closest to our attack move on the ground while keeping us at max range, you actually can only have to move your mouse this far to kite now instead of this far back and forth, right? So even if your mouse settings are set to really fast, it's still too hard. If they're set to really slow, it's even harder. So it's much easier to go this far back and forth. I can move the character here, right click and it's going to attack. Move it here, right click and it's going to attack. Here, right click and attack. Versus here and then all the way back. Here and all the way back. Here and all the way back. It's too slow, it's too inefficient. So that's where kiting comes in. So what I'd say is if you want to get better at kiting, make sure you follow the setups with the gameplay options that we have for attack moving that we talked about, and then just go into practice tool even for a minute, like literally 60 seconds before you start your gameplay that day, and just get used to right clicking and attack moving just right next to your own feet, closest to the target that you want to hit. So you can just walk circles around the target that you want to hit, and it keeps you at max range, right? Again, this is great for beginners because you can stay super safe. Click all the way back out here if you want while you learn to kite, and then click in, and he's going to come back in and attack at max range. If you want to attack a different target, make sure you attack move closer to the ground on this target. So this will attack, right? Closest target. Here, closest target. Here, black target. Here, that target. Here, that target. There, that target, right? So you're going to move, attack move, move, attack move, move, attack move. And the mouse is staying really, really close to me, so it's much easier to control. So that pretty much wraps it up, guys. I will catch you in the next class. Good luck.